No offense to those who may not qualify for that category, but it's really great. And I want to say a special thanks to Josh, who I know did a ton of work to organize this event. We had the pleasure and privilege of having Josh on our team this summer. He was one of our summer interns. And I literally, we had a great group. And I think Josh would say it was really, they seemed to have a really good time. We had over 30 people, high school and college kids working with us. We were very intentional about trying to reach out to high school and college kids to give them an opportunity to help our campaign and also infuse all that young energy into our campaign. And we were really fortunate with the group we had. And Josh was among the best people we had on our team. I still, when I go around to events, in fact, one of the events I was recently at with the Garcias at Representative Cyback's summer picnic or whatever it was called. Someone came up to me, I won't say his name, but came up to me who lives in East Hampton and said, "Hey, I just want you to, you've got a guy on your team, Josh Kalianos. He is amazing. He's knocked on my door twice. He makes a compelling case for your campaign, and you are really lucky to have him." And that is not the only person who said that to me. So I want to thank Josh. I also, I thanked him when I got to meet him tonight, thanked Mr. Gunn. Because I know Mr. Gunn and people like him have a great deal of influence in getting people like you excited about getting engaged in the political process. And, you know, it says a lot to me that you all are here tonight. I have a daughter who is a senior in high school, who right now is extremely stressed out about a lot of stuff, academics and her homework, and she's got, you know, the school paper that she writes up for, she's an editor for. She's all freaked out about the college common application and the SATs and all this stuff. So I am painfully aware right now of everything you all are going through, and I know how meaningful it is that you've chosen to take time to be here tonight. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to tell you that it matters to show up to stuff like this, as I'm sure Mr. Gunn tells you and encourages you. You know, we've learned a lot of stuff from this last presidential election. One of the lessons I've taken away from it, and one of the things that President Obama talked about in his farewell address, if you saw that a few months ago, is this notion that our liberties and our democracy and the strength of our community, these fundamental American privileges, are not self-fulfilling. They need us. They need us to breathe life into them and to protect them and be vigilant about them. And we cannot take them for granted. So the good news is, as I've been going around the state for the last 8 months as a candidate for governor, there are people showing up to stuff like this and to Democratic city committee meetings and house parties who've never been to anything like it before. And they are fired up, and they are energized, and they are wanting to do something. And that is good. That is a silver lining, in my view, to what's happening in our country right now. We need to leverage that energy, and we need to build on it. And a lot of that energy right now is focused on Washington, for good reason. I just came from a rally in Pittsfield where there were probably 50 to 100 people rallying to protect Obamacare right now, in the face of yet another attempt to repeal it. And we need to be focused there. We need that energy to be focused there because there's a president, in my view, who's trying to take us backwards. But we also need to recognize the best we're going to do in Washington right now is hold the line. I mean, we are moving backwards. The question is how far. The only place we are going to move forward is here, in Massachusetts. And moving forward, making progress, that is a fundamental part of who we are too. So my entire life, I've been really fortunate. I've been surrounded by people who've proven our potential for progress. I've had teachers like Mr. Gunn, who've taught me how important it is that we stay focused on making progress. The very first time I ever got politically active in a campaign was the summer before my senior year in college, so I wasn't as young as Josh, or all of you. But summer before my senior year in college, I went back to my home state of Ohio to work on a campaign for a guy named John Glenn. Are you all too young to know who John Glenn was? Yeah. So John Glenn, running for re-election to the United States Senate as a Democrat. I was mostly running all over the state, handing things out at county fairs to people. But a couple of times I actually got to drive John Glenn to events. And it still blows my mind that this man who sat in Friendship 7 and orbited the Earth was sitting next to me in my Ford Temple. This is an American hero who literally reached for the stars and got there. I got to serve as a cabinet secretary for Governor Deval Patrick, and I assume you all know his life story. It proves the American dream exists, and he never lost sight of all those continuing to reach for it. And there are many others in my life who've proven this point about our potential for progress. People like my wife, who grew up in Western Massachusetts, in Chicopee, and my daughters, my friends, colleagues, and people I don't even know, but no one more than my parents. You heard a little bit about my parents. My mom's from Cleveland, Ohio, and during college she went away on a foreign exchange program to Spain. 9 months later, she came back married to my 19-year-old Spanish father and pregnant with me. I don't know how old you were, Senor Garcia, when you came back. But 19 years old and pregnant with me. And I love telling that story to parents who have kids going on foreign exchange programs. Really freaks them out. But they didn't have a lot. My mom had to drop out of college to take care of me. My dad didn't speak English, and he'd never been to college. But with a lot of hard work and optimism, he's filled with optimism, he worked his way from laying bricks in a city sewer system to becoming a successful small businessman and a proud American citizen. My mom went back to college when I was in high school and became a public school teacher, a Spanish teacher. And together, they put all 3 sons through college. And this year, amazingly, they celebrated their 47th wedding anniversary. It's incredible. Through that example, and just the way they parented us, they always encouraged us to set high expectations for ourselves. And they instilled in us a belief that with hard work and a little help, reaching those expectations was actually possible. Now, those values aren't unique to me and my family, right? Those are our values, American values. And no one has reached higher, worked harder, and accomplished more together than the incredible people of Massachusetts. Think about it. We started the Revolutionary War. We were the first to establish a public school and a public park, the first to recognize one's right to marry whoever you love, the first to make universal health insurance coverage a reality, and the list goes on and on and on. This is who we are. We have always been a leader, but not now, not under Governor Baker. I've been frustrated by how little our governor's accomplished, but I've been more frustrated, honestly, by how little he has even tried. He's way too satisfied with the status quo. He's too often sitting on the sidelines when we need him, and it's not good enough. Not ever, but particularly not now, with the president trying to take us backwards, attacking immigrants, attacking our healthcare, attacking our environment, attacking our democracy. We need leadership. We need a governor who's going to stand up and fight for the people of Massachusetts. There are consequences to a lack of leadership. There are way too many families in this state still being left behind, and way too little is being done to help them. And people forget this about Governor Baker. But long before Donald Trump, he failed to stand up to hate and discrimination time and time again. Ordered state police to detain immigrants. Opposed Syrian refugees resettling in Massachusetts. Defended southern states flying Confederate flags at their state capitals. The very symbols of hate and intolerance and bigotry that we saw on display in Charlottesville. And he stayed silent on transgender rights legislation, only signing it when forced to do so and doing it behind closed doors. It's not okay. It's not who we are, and it's not leadership. Now, Governor Baker's case for being governor wasn't about leadership. Remember, it was that he was going to be a good manager. Well, he has failed at that as well. And I know about good management. As Governor Patrick's Secretary of Administration and Finance, I was responsible for managing the state budget during much tougher times during the Great Recession, and we did so successfully while maintaining record levels of investment in public education and in infrastructure, and we achieved the highest bond ratings in state history when I was there. Governor Baker is struggling to manage the budget during a period of economic growth. He keeps cutting funding for programs that desperately need it. For the first time in 30 years, one of the rating agencies just downgraded the state's bond rating. And the reason they did is they said he isn't following the responsible fiscal policies that we put in place when I was there. And this is supposed to be his core competency and is literally his entire case for being governor. As CEO of a health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program, I turned our company around, grew it by multiple times, added hundreds of jobs. We were considered a leader in addressing the opioid epidemic. So I know about good management. And we can do a better job managing state government. I'm certain of that. But here's the thing. Unlike Governor Baker, I believe managing government well is necessary, but not sufficient. Government is our instrument, not our enemy. It's the vehicle through which we empower each other and support each other and protect each other. And it is not good enough to simply accept the world the way it exists and try to manage it better. We need a governor who's going to see the way the world should be and take us to that place. Let's aim high. Let's aim high. Let's be us. Let's give working families across this state a better deal, an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. How about a living wage, paid family leave, affordable housing, and higher education, which I know all you are worried about right now, probably, right? Affordable higher education and child care, an issue I care passionately about. How about a transportation system that people can actually depend on to get to work on time, including not just in the greater Boston area, but all over this state? Let's aim high when it comes to our dysfunctional healthcare system and implement a single-payer system that's simpler, cheaper, and actually does a better job keeping people healthy. Yes, thank you. Let's aim high when it comes to other big challenges we face, like climate change, the biggest threat to our planet, and our broken criminal justice system, which is jailing way too many for way too long. And more important than anything I just said, let's aim high when it comes to how we treat people. We need a governor who sees the value and potential of every single person, who respects everyone, who doesn't need coaching and pressure and second chances to get it right. And I want you to know that if I'm your governor, it will not matter what color you are, what your sexual orientation is, what you believe, whether you're from East Hampton or from Boston, whether you just came to this country, whether you're a Syrian refugee, whether you're transgender. I see you, I believe in you, and as your governor, I will work for you. I believe we've always done better when we see our differences as strengths, and when we recognize that beneath those differences are many more similarities. When we treat each other with respect and dignity and love. So let's aim high. If we do, I know we can build a better future for everyone. That's the lesson my parents taught me. It's the American story. It's what the people of Massachusetts have proven over and over again, and it's what we should expect from our government and from ourselves. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm not a career politician just trying to get to my next elected office. I'm not going to make whatever political calculation I need to make just to win at whatever cost. I'm in this because I care about people, and I want to make a difference in people's lives. And if that's the type of candidate you want, if you believe we need to aim high, if you want Massachusetts to be a leader again, then I hope you will follow Josh's lead, and I hope to earn your support, and I hope you will join our grassroots campaign. Thank you very much. And I am happy to I want to qualify what I guess it was Katie said, that I would be taking questions. I like taking easy questions. So if anyone has any of those, I'm happy to take them. If people, before I start taking questions, a couple other things. If you are interested in learning more about our campaign, there are palm cards, I think, either being passed around or in the back or somewhere with a little information about the campaign. Our website is on it where you can learn a lot more. And there's also an email address on it. I know that I don't know everything. And there are a lot of smart people in this room. And you care about particular issues or you have experience in particular areas. I'm asking you to let me know what you think I need to know. It makes me a better candidate, and it'll make me a better governor at the end of the day. So if you don't get to it today, feel free to send me an email letting me know what you care about. There's also, Kevin, is there a sign-up sheet? There is. So there's a sign-up sheet working around. If you put your information on here, it doesn't mean you're swearing to God that you're going to support me. It just means you want to be on our email list and keep up with the campaign. If you have decided by the end of tonight that you do want to help the campaign, there are pledge cards that I would ask you to sign, letting us know you're with us and giving it back to either Josh or Kevin. I also want to welcome Pat, who's here with the video camera. Pat is from the State Republican Party. He is my tracker. He's starting to go to a lot of places. It's now the third time we've gotten to hang out together. It's great to have Pat here, and we welcome him. If you ask questions and we engage, you may end up on camera, but don't worry about it. It's fine. It's all part of the deal. So welcome, Pat. All right, yeah. All right. Yes. What is your name?
My name is Rose.
Hi, Rose. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. I know you touched briefly on the opioid epidemic. I was wondering if you had any further thoughts about the burden on the foster care system and also the increase in domestic violence is related to the opioid epidemic.
Yeah, it sure seems like there's a correlation, doesn't there? We're seeing caseloads at our Department of Children and Families, which takes care of neglected and abused children. By the way, one of the agencies and one of the functions of state government that doesn't get a lot of attention, but in a lot of ways, I think one of the biggest reflections on us as a people is how we treat and what we do for the most vulnerable among us, like abused and neglected children, like the elderly, like people with disabilities, where state government is often a source of support for those folks, and it's one of the most important things government does. And so we are seeing, unfortunately, an uptick in caseload at the Department of Children and Families. A lot of signs suggest that the opioid epidemic, which is ruining people's lives, tearing families apart, is a big part of what's driving that dynamic. Our criminal justice system, many of the people who are ending up in our jails are people both with mental illness and more with addiction, suffering from addiction. So we need to do much more than we are doing. This is a crisis. This is a public health crisis in our state. It is literally tearing communities apart across this entire state. And we need to respond to it with the level of urgency that the crisis demands. And my view is that our current governor is not being aggressive enough about this. We're almost 3 years in, and the number of people who are dying from the opioid epidemic every year is a lot more than it used to be. The number of people showing up in emergency rooms is growing every year, who are suffering from overdoses, who can't find the treatment resources they need. When I was the CEO of the health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program, the number one health condition of our membership was addiction. Of any condition, physical or behavioral. So we ended up learning a lot about this. We ended up attacking it from a lot of different angles. We did over 20 new initiatives, trying new things. We did a very health insurance company-like thing, and we got rid of all the prior authorization requirements, all the barriers for people getting access to the treatment they needed. We did things like paid providers to go out into the community and find our members who we knew were addicted and try to engage them and get them invested in their own treatment and recovery. We called families who we knew our members had overdosed. We called them to try to get in touch with their families, to get them to training on how to administer Narcan, overdose reversal drug, and to get our members into the treatment they need. All kinds of different things. There's not one silver bullet. And as a result, the Boston Globe named our company, out of any company in any industry, one of the 46 most innovative, game-changing companies in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts because of the innovative work we did in addressing the opioid crisis. So this is an issue I'm familiar with. I would attack it from every different angle. A couple of things I'm particularly concerned about that I think we need to do a better job of is educating the public. Public service announcements similar to what was done with tobacco, which had a huge role in driving down tobacco use. We need to educate kids in schools about the dangers of this. I also think we got to be honest about the fact we need to invest much more in our treatment resources so that we can meet the demand that exists. But this is a crisis. It demands a level of urgency and aggressiveness that I don't see right now. Yes, what is your name? Colleen? Colleen. All right, nice to meet you.
So you talked about you want economic that makes everyone satisfied. You talk about affordable houses and higher education and living salaries. Are you implying that you're going to make some changes in tax policies, or if not, how are you going to?
I said easy questions. Very good question. Yes, some of what I'm proposing we need to do is be honest about the fact that in order to make a difference in people's lives, state government does not have the resources it needs to adequately provide the services that people expect and deserve. So I have supported a question that's going to be on the ballot next year when the governor's race is on the ballot. That's called the Fair Share Tax Amendment, or otherwise known as the Millionaire's Tax. It would impose an additional 4% income tax on income that people earn in excess of $1 million a year. Right now, the state's income tax is 5.1%, so for the first $1 million you make after you graduate from here, you'll still be taxed at 5.1%, and for every dollar after that, you'll be taxed at 9.1%. It's asking 19,500 taxpayers in our state who've done very well to pay a little bit more to generate meaningful new revenue we desperately need to make some of the investments that I've talked about. This is, I believe, the fairest way where we have a tax structure today in Massachusetts that is regressive. Those who make the most pay the least percentage of their income in taxes, and those who make the least pay the highest percentage of their income in taxes. This would help to fix that a little bit, and it asks those who are doing really great to help provide a little additional revenue that we desperately need in state government. So I'm supporting this. Charlie Baker's taken no position on this. He's made general statements about the fact that he doesn't want to ask anyone else to pay any more taxes. There's a big difference between my approach and his and what the type of leadership I'm offering. He basically, in my view, is a status quo governor. He basically looks at what we've got and says he's going to try to figure out the best we can do with it. I think we need to be looking at where do we need to go to make a real difference in people's lives and how do we get it. Understanding there are constraints and we can't do everything. But we're not going to get anywhere, we're not going to make any progress if we don't even try. And if we're not honest about the fact that we need additional revenue. Yes, what is your name?
Me?
Yes.
Caleb.
Hey, Caleb.
Somewhat related to that, you touched briefly on transportation and how our system is currently very flawed. I imagine that some portion of the Fair Share Amendment, the new revenue for them, would be going towards that.
Yes.
This is coming from, I haven't spent much time in Boston, and our transportation system here is, from my understanding, very good. So could you go into a little more depth about the problems that currently face the other transportation systems in Massachusetts and what you would do to fix them?
Yeah. So there are regional transit authorities, which are the public transit systems for every part of the state outside of the greater Boston area. And the regional transit authorities are also suffering from inadequate funding. They can't provide the level of service. You know, I was just in Pittsfield and heard from someone complaints about the fact that the Pittsfield bus service is only available during working hours. So one of the great assets in Pittsfield and the Berkshire area is their creative economy, right? They're all about the arts. Got Tanglewood there. They have a hospital. A lot of people who either want to go to entertainment during non-working hours, who have no option for public transit, or people who work, more importantly, work at these facilities, work at the hospital in off hours, who don't have public transit as an option. So one of the things that I want to do is assess what the transit needs are in every other part of the state with the regional transit authorities that aren't being addressed that could make a real difference to supporting the economies and people in different regions. The other thing is our road and bridge infrastructure. So our total transportation infrastructure in Massachusetts, we were recently ranked 45th in the country for, in terms of the condition of our transportation infrastructure, and 47th for commute times, which is probably mostly in Greater Boston and everything. But we've got roads and bridges that are in deplorable condition. When I was there working for Governor Patrick, they've been neglected for decades. There was, I think we had something like 500 plus structurally deficient bridges across the entire Commonwealth. Like the worst rating for deficiency, getting close to the point where we need to close them because they haven't been properly maintained. We, and I actually developed this program, developed a program called the Accelerated Bridge Program, where we figured out a way to finance $3 billion over 8 years in additional investment to fix structurally deficient bridges across the state, including western Massachusetts. And we started to turn the needle in the other direction as a result of this program. And we actually drove down the number of structurally deficient bridges in the state. That number is going up again because Governor Baker is not investing in it. And he has no plan to do so. And it's the wrong direction, and people deserve better. A functioning, accessible, well-maintained transportation system, both roads, bridges, and public transit, is one of the most important responsibilities government has. And we have fallen down on the job. And we need to invest in it. And he will tell you, we don't need any more money, we just need to manage it better. Well, that is not honest. Of course, we need to always strive to manage better. But in this case, we also need additional revenue to invest in our system once and for all. Yes, sir.
I'm here for HVAC.
Thank you. What is your name?
Morning. You said you were in favor of single payer health
Yeah.
care, as am I. My question to you is, given that 3 progressive states have already tried it, and 3 progressive states have failed it, how do you propose to get over the interim period, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever that period is, when you're going from sticking money into the healthcare system, usually vast quantities of money, until you finally turn it around so that it costs us less than it does?
So, I actually, thank you for the question. I actually believe it doesn't necessarily, going to a single payer system doesn't actually require us to have a long lead time before we save money. I want to, just for the benefit of people who may not understand what we're talking about, take a minute to just try to explain what we're talking about. So right now we've got a healthcare system where there are lots of different health plans, right? There's a Medicaid system that the state and federal government administer to provide health insurance coverage for poor people and people with disabilities. There is the Medicare program, which the federal government administers, which is the payer for people 65 and over for most of their insurance coverage, but not all of their insurance coverage. And there are lots of private health plans, like the one I used to be the CEO of, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Pilgrim, Tufts. There are probably 10 or so in Massachusetts that provide health insurance coverage to people throughout Massachusetts. So there are all these different health plans that people get coverage from. It's, for those of you who've not yet had the pleasure of trying to figure out what health insurance plan you want to pick, it's very complicated, even for very well-educated grown-ups. It is every additional second I spent in the healthcare system as CEO of a health insurance company. There were some things we did that I was very proud of and helping to improve care coordination and attacking the opioid epidemic the way I described. But most of what we did as a health insurance plan was wasteful. You have all these different health insurers working with all these different doctors and hospitals, negotiating contracts for what they're going to pay them for all the different services they provide to your members. They have, the doctors and hospitals have to have a whole team of people to deal with and negotiate all those contracts with our teams of people. Then, we have a whole team of people that would input all those contracts into our IT systems to make sure when we got bills, we paid the bills right. We inevitably screwed it up, as every health insurance company does. So they're all teams of people who just work to fix all the screw-ups. And it's replicated health plan to health plan, and it adds no value to the system. The system is based on the premise that it's a functioning market, and it has none of the attributes of a functioning market. And as a result, costs are too high. There are imbalances in the market that don't get worked out because it isn't a functioning market. And the truth is, lower income people don't have access to the same healthcare services that wealthier people do. And in my view, and if you buy this premise, I think hopefully I will convince you to agree. In my view, if you believe that access to good quality healthcare and access to the healthcare services that one needs to be as healthy as they can be is a human right, then you should not support the system we have today. Now, there are other things we can do to fix our system, but I think moving to single payer is the quickest, easiest way to cut a lot of what is just administrative waste out of our system, and to have a system that is encouraging the providers and doctors and working in collaboration with them, rowing all in the same direction, so that we're getting to a more effective system that actually is incentivized and does a better job of keeping people healthy. And I believe if we do this right, we can actually save money out of the gate. Now, this is a big deal. 20% of the Massachusetts economy is the healthcare industry. Single payer is a buzzword that lots of people like, but it's a means, it's not an end. We have to be careful about the way we implement this. We have to be thoughtful. This isn't a 5-minute thing. Anyone who tells you we can do it now is not telling the truth. We need to so how do we do it and how do we do it successfully? We need leadership. I actually know the healthcare industry. I've worked in it. I know the people in it. I think I have credibility with a lot of the leaders in the healthcare industry, and we're fortunate in Massachusetts. We have a very progressive healthcare industry. We've done big things before. We were the first in the country to do near universal health insurance coverage. That was a result of a lot of the healthcare industry and policymakers and others getting into a figurative room and holding hands and saying, you know what, we're all going to make a sacrifice in order to get to this better place. But we need leadership. We need a governor who's going to force those people into the room, who's going to take this moment in time that I believe we have that's different from what some of the states experienced who tried this before, where you've got all this disruption at the federal level, where all of a sudden you got a lot of people like me who never were states' rights people before, who are now saying, you know what, let us do it. You know, it would be great if the federal government did it, but let us do it and be a leader on this. And when I'm talking to business leaders, they're sick of dealing with healthcare. They're sick of the administrative burden. They're sick of the unpredictability of costs. Families are sick of dealing with how complicated it is. Government, it's crushing everything state government does. Charlie Baker can't control the healthcare budget in Massachusetts. And all he keeps trying to do is put Band-Aids on a system that has gaping wounds. We need leadership to reform the system. I think this is the best way to do it. And I think based on my experience, this is something the other two Democratic candidates for governor agree on. What I would ask you to consider is I think I'm best positioned to provide the leadership to actually get us there because I know the industry, I know the people. Josh.
I have a softball question.
Thank you.